The Alabama State Board of Nursing has announced a new nursing support technician credential aimed at easing nurse burnout. Our News 4's Jacqueline Lambert has the details.
Nursing support technicians are an important part of Alabama's healthcare system.
I think there's a total of 16 titles in hospitals, and their job descriptions would be a little bit different. And they work under delegation by the nurse, so it's really sometimes difficult to understand what exactly this role can and cannot do.
The state board has a new credential for nursing support techs, or NSTs, that will bring those different titles under one that is regulated for uniformed education and training. Before now, nurses had the responsibility of delegating for the different titles. That responsibility for infractions and violations on top of the day-to-day responsibility of nurses has led to burnout.
When you delegate, you are actually working under the license of the nurse. But now that they will have their own permit, they'll be working under their own permitted functions in their own scope of practice. They can do a lot of the duties that you don't necessarily have to have a licensed nurse at the bedside do. And it just really will free them up to do what a nurse must do.
This also serves as a protection, ensuring each technician has been properly vetted by the board before going into hospitals and nursing homes. The main goal of this certification is to address the continuing healthcare staff shortage.
From a workforce standpoint, this is tremendous. When you look at the rural healthcare system, they currently have about 40% vacancies. And our goal is to help them get the people in, get them at the bedside to support the nursing staff to where they'll want to work in the rural facilities, but also want to stay in the rural community.
In Dothan, Jacqueline Lambert, your hometown news leader.